My name is Muaz Zekeria. I'm 28, and I am a freelance writer that writes about comic books, movies, video games, um, pretty much anything pop culture related. I've been gaming since I was a little kid. I'd always go to my friend's house, and his parents always got him, the latest consoles, be they, the original Nintendo or Sega Genesis or what have you. Then I got my first console when I was maybe 11 or 12. Um, I got an N64 for something. I don't quite remember what, but ever since then I've been kind of a big gamer. Um, Recently I've kind of fallen off that between work and trying to pay bills and everything, but I try to keep up with the latest games and everything. And I've been writing about games since early 2011. I wrote for a small site called Twinfinite for a while. Then after that, I am currently writing for a site called The Game Fanatics, which is a small site, and I also do a little freelance writing on the side for Nerdist.com. And I've been doing that for about a year and a half now. Some of my favorite games, the main one would have to be Mass Effect, the Mass Effect trilogy by BioWare. It's this sci-fi exploration type game. I've always been a fan of those type of games. Just you build your little team of people and you explore the galaxy and everything like that. It's kind of Star Warsy if you want to think of it that way. Um, Another game I really like is Skyrim, Elder Scrolls Skyrim, which is more of a swords and shields type game. You again just wander around, doing little missions for people, filling bounties, stuff like that, delivering packages. Um, I've, I guess I'm now realizing that I like more open world games where you can kind of do whatever you want. And probably the next game, it's one of my favorites, would have to be Grand Theft Auto, that series, just because it's current. It has something to say on the way the world is now. And then, if you want, you can progress through the story. If you don't want, you can just hop in a car and drive around and do random things if you want, which I guess is kind of interesting. Games that I'm not really a fan of would have to be like those military shooters, just because they don't really have anything to say. It's just you go from point A to point B and kill as many of the bad guys as possible. And for the most part, you're playing as a white character, and the people you're killing are all brown characters, be they Hispanic or Middle Eastern or Asian or African or what have you. There's just nothing about that that's appealing to me. So I tend to just ignore those types of games. Being a black Muslim is kind of an interesting. Those are two interesting cards to carry into the gaming industry, just because there's not. First of all, there's not too many black people in the gaming industry. Second of all, there's not a lot of Muslim people in the gaming industry. And for someone to be a black Muslim in the gaming industry, it's almost as rare as finding a unicorn or something. It can be interesting at times, just because there's so few of us. Like there's so few black people in the industry. There's so few Muslim people in the industry that whenever you find those people, you instantly become very close to them, and you support each other and help each other out, which is always awesome. And just kind of comparing notes between each other, it's great. It's how I've found some of my closest friends. Um, but at the same time, it's kind of rough a little bit because you show up to an event or a screening or something, and you're the only black person in the crowd, or you're the only Muslim person that you can tell is in the crowd. It's a little harder with identifying other people as Muslims, but in the couple of years I've been going to industry events and everything, I've met maybe three other Muslim people. Um, Black people I've met a couple more, but again, they're not as high profile as one would hope. Um, so it's a little bit tough, especially when you go into an event and it's like, oh, we're showing off the latest shooter game, which I said before I'm not really a fan of, but okay, the latest shooter game. What's going on? You're a white person and you're going into the Middle East and you're going to be killing all these Arab people who, for the sake of argument, let's say most of them are Muslim, which is kind of, it's disheartening a little bit at times. But then there are those rare instances where there's a game that's coming out with, even if it's a secondary or tertiary character that's not on screen for that often, if they happen to be black or they happen to be Muslim, you connect with them instantly. And then those are the little moments that kind of recharge you and re-energize you and keep you going till the next little glimmer of hope, I guess you would call it. Uh, Definitely the first thing I would change is just having more characters be black or from a Muslim background. Just because you you just see a dearth of these brown-haired, medium-sized, medium-build, white male protagonists in gaming. And to be honest, those are the least interesting games to play. They're they they're just everywhere, and you get sick of it. And just a little bit of just injecting diversity into it would help exponentially, and especially for um, Muslim characters, they're always the terrorist, or they're always like the noble savage trope that they fall into, which is not great. I personally, the best portrayal I've seen of a Muslim character would have to be in the original Assassin's Creed game that came out. It's based on the assassins from Middle Eastern history, and you deal with a lot of Christian and Arab and Muslim characters, and you're dealing with a lot of European characters and Arab characters, and it's an interesting look into the early days of the Crusade, and it's the first game where I was playing as an Arab character, if not Muslim. I always read him as a Muslim character too, just because at the time, and just little clues you have about the character's background, I always read him as Muslim. So it was always interesting and fun to me to finally play as this badass Muslim character who was fighting to save the world. And then black characters as well, they're always portrayed as these ignorant, thuggish characters. Um, It'd be great to be able to see them as not that. Um, there are black soldiers, black engineers, black scientists, black lawyers and doctors and judges, and just you don't see these type of characters. So I definitely love to see something like that. Oh man, the perfect game. Uh, I don't know. Me personally, I already have a perfect game. It's Mass Effect. That's the perfect game. You have a wide variety of characters in terms of diversity. You have a pretty even mix between male and female characters. It's interesting. There's multiple endings depending on how you want to play it. You can go as in depth as you want. You can breeze through it if you want. Um, it'd be tough to kind of top that. Um, but if I had to make the perfect game, I guess it would be something like that. Something open worldy, with a diverse cast, and just not only diverse in terms of background, but just you're always seeing the same kind of tropes. Like, oh, here's the tough soldier guy, or here's the smart nerdy scientist. Just kind of to break out of that. That would be something interesting to see. I would guess and say that most Muslims just either don't know that it's an option to get into, just because it's drilled into us from such a young age. The only acceptable um, fields to get into are being a doctor, a lawyer, engineer, and for the Muslim women, the only other option is housewife, which is kind of messed up. Um, Either they don't know it's an option to get into, or they're just not interested in it. For the most part, most of the Muslims I know, maybe 1% of them are interested enough in the gaming field or gaming industry to get into it. There are a couple of them that I know very well. Rami Ismail, who is a Egyptian developer from, I think it's Sweden. And then there's Mona and May Ayed, who are vloggers from the Bay Area in America. who create videos all the time and work with sites covering events in freelance capacity. Beyond that, I don't know of too many others. Like I said, it's probably just because they don't realize that that's an industry that they can get into. And really, it's like people ask all the time, how do you get into it? It's honestly just writing. The more you write or the more you create, the easier it is to get into it. What I would say to Muslims is definitely, if you're interested in the field, definitely go for it. I know there's going to be pressures from within your community, within your family, to stick to the path that makes you the most money. But that's not really what's important in life. You can have all the money in the world, but if you're miserable, that doesn't mean anything. Some of the most interesting experiences I've ever had have been when I've put all my money and all my resources into just trying to go to this one event, and it's been, life changing, and I've gotten all these opportunities based on just putting everything aside to chase my dream. And I would definitely say that, regardless of what the world or your, community or what your family expects from you, if you are interested in a field, definitely go into it, because nothing bad can happen. The worst thing that'll happen is you will find that maybe you're not as passionate about it as you thought. You can just hop tracks into something that you're much more passionate about. And then eventually, if you keep working at it, you could become successful in that, and then money will come eventually. That's always something, you need to live, obviously, but at the same time, you shouldn't sacrifice all your dreams to chase money.
If you enjoyed the video, then make sure you visit shatterproof.com/donate.